Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Welcome, devotees. Thank you for being here on this auspicious day of Nityananda Trayodasi. Shri Nityananda Ram Ki Jai. And the Srimad Bhagavatam verse for today is the 5th canto, 1st chapter, text number 5. Okay, it's up on the screen.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naranchayvam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Nasta Prashura Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Daigora Haribo. So you want to pull it up on the screen? Or is it there?
That is the translation. Okay, yeah, this is it. 5.5.
Okay, so it's there for everyone. Okay. I will read the Sanskrit and the synonyms, and then Ekavira Prabhu will read the verse. Just make sure this is. Should we pull it up on the screen? No.
Let's leave it there.
Okay. Sorry, devotees. Sorry about 5-1. Trying to find it on the book. Okay. I'm going to read the Sanskrit just because of this meter. Not sure of this meter. Shri Shuka Vacha Badham Uktam Bhagavata Uttama Shlokasya Shrimak Charana Vrinda Makaranda Rasa De Dvevshita Chaitasha Bhagavata, sorry. Paramahamsa Daita Katam Kinchit Antaraya Vihatam Swam Shivatamam Padavinda Cha Prayena Hinvanti. Thank you. The translation of this beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is considered a very important verse for all of us. The translation, Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, "What you have said is correct. The glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised in eloquent transcendental verses by such exalted personalities as Brahma, are very pleasing to great souls and liberated persons. One who is attached to the nectarian honey of the Lord's lotus feet and whose mind is always absorbed in his glories may sometimes be checked by some impediment, but he still never gives up the exalted position he has acquired." I'm just going to read the word for word because that's so important. The synonym, Sri Shuka Uvacha, Sri Shukadev Goswami said, "Badham, correct. Uttam, what you have said. Bhagavata, the Supreme Person, Bhagavataha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Uttama Shlokashya, who is praised with excellent verses. Srimat Charanavinda, of the feet, which are just like the most beautiful, fragrant lotus flowers. Markaranda, honey. Rase, in the nectar. Aveshita, absorbed. Chaitashaha, whose hearts. Bhagavata, to the devotees. Paramahamsa, liberated persons. Daita, pleasing. Katam, glorification. Kinchit, sometimes. Antaraya, by impediments. Vihitam, checked. Swam, own. Shiva tamam, most exalted. Padavim, position. Na, do not. Prayena, almost always. Hinvanti, give up. And Ekavira was going to do this purport. Okay.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sri Shukadev Goswami accepted both of the king's propositions that a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. Although accepting both these statements, Sukadeva Goswami qualified them by saying that a person who has once absorbed his mind in the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead may sometimes be influenced by impediments, but he still does not give up his exalted devotional position. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, there are two kinds of impediments to devotional service. First is an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. This is called Vaishnava Aparad. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu warned his devotees not to commit Vaishnava Aparad, which he described as the mad elephant offense. When a mad elephant enters a beautiful garden, it destroys everything, leaving a barren field. Similarly, the power of Vaishnava Aparad is so great that even an advanced devotee becomes almost devoid of his spiritual assets if he commits it. Since Krishna consciousness is eternal, it cannot be destroyed altogether, but advancement may be checked for the time being. Thus, Vaishnava Aparad is one kind of impediment to devotional service. Sometimes, however, the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotee desires to impede one's devotional service. For example, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were formerly Jai and Vijay, the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha. But by the desire of the Lord, they became his enemies for 3 lives. Thus, the desire of the Lord is another kind of impediment. But in both cases, the pure devotee, once advanced in Krishna consciousness, cannot be lost. Following the orders of his superiors, Swayambhuva and Lord Brahma, Priyavrata accepted family life. But this did not mean he lost his position in devotional service. Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost under any circumstances. Because the material world is full of obstructions to advancement in Krishna consciousness, there may appear to be many impediments, yet Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declares in the Bhagavad Gita, 9:31, Kaunteya Pratijani Na Me Bhakta Panashyati. Once one has taken shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. In this verse, Shiva Tamam is very significant. Shiva Tamam means the most auspicious. The devotional path is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstances. This is described in Srimad Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. Partha Laivha Namutra Vinashas Tasya Vidyate. My dear Arjuna, for a devotee, there is no question of being lost. either in this life or in the next. Bhagavad Gita 640. In the Bhagavad Gita 643, the Lord clearly explains how this is so. Chatatam buddhi sham yogam labhate purvadihikam yatate cha tato bhuyaham samsiddho kurunandana. By the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. Because of his previous practice, such a perfect devotee naturally becomes attached to devotional service, apparently without cause. Despite all kinds of impediments due to surrounding circumstances, he automatically preserves his devotional service and gradually advances until he once again becomes perfect. Viva Mangala Thakur has been an advanced devotee in his previous life, but in his next life, he became greatly fallen and was attached to a prostitute. Suddenly, however, his entire behavior was changed by the words of the very prostitute who had so much attracted him, and he became a great devotee. In the lives of exalted devotees, there are many such instances, proving that once one is taken to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. Kuntiya Patajanina, my Bhaktya Panashyati. The fact is, however, one becomes a devotee when he is completely freed from all reactions to sinful life. As Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Yesham Tvananta Gatam Bhaktam, Jananam Punya Karmanam, Tedvanda Moha Nirmukta, Bhajate Mam Dridha Vritaha. Persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, and who are freed from the duality of illusion, engage themselves in my service with determination. On the other hand, as Prahlad Maharaj says, Matyana Krishna Parata Swatova Mito Bit Padyate Graha Vartanam. A person who is too attached to materialistic family life, home, family, wife, children, and so on, cannot develop Krishna consciousness. These apparent contradictions are resolved in the life of a devotee by the grace of the Supreme Lord. And therefore, a devotee is never bereft of his position on the path of liberation, which is described in this verse as Shiva Tamam Padabel.
Okay, long verse. Om Agana Timirandasya Gana Shalakaya Chakshiramalitamyena Tasma Shubhavaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prabhu Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaur Bani Pachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhakti Vitarne. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prabhu Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamini. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane Shri Gauraka Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Dinamini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Panchakalpa Tarubhishta Kripa Sindhu Bhirevata. Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Haribol, dear devotees. So today we're humbly begging all of the glorious Vaishnavas on this forum, on hearing Gita Nagari, to please bless us on this most auspicious day of Lord Nityananda's appearance day, to be able to say something on behalf of Lord Nityananda, our spiritual master, and we beg permission from the senior devotee here that we can somehow share some small realization. And Ekavira Prabhu is going to start us out. However, I just wanted to bring back to our attention where we're at in the Bhagavatam now. So we've just passed through these 4 questions that I was asked by Parikshit Maharaj from Shukadev Goswami. And now we're in the 5th verse, where Shukadev Goswami is going to answer the questions of Parikshit Maharaj. So this verse that we're reading now, this 5th verse, sets the mood for the entire 5th and 6th cantos, because all of the personalities in these 2 cantos are faced with the same obstacle, if we call it an obstacle. All of the devotees in the 5th and 6th cantos, they have some kind of impediment, and somehow we learn how they've dealt with these impediments. So we're starting with the first of these, dealing with these impediments with Priyavata, the King Priyavata. So Ekavira Prabhu will continue.
So back in the text, yes, in the text, the beginning of the purport, actually, where Srila Prabhupada expresses this contradiction, as he tries to explain this contradiction, seemingly contradiction. Sukadev Goswami accepted both the king's proposition that a person who has advanced in Krishna consciousness cannot embrace materialistic life again, and that one who has embraced materialistic life cannot take up Krishna consciousness at any stage of his existence. And so Srila Prabhupada explains about this particular aspect, and he cites Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, indicating that there are 2 main impediments, of course, and that is the Vaishnava aparad, and then the desire of the Lord and his devotee. And so this particular point is extremely important here, and as Vraja-Lila expressed it, this verse is kind of like a pivotal verse. It actually, not a pivotal verse, it is a summary verse, so to speak, or a preface to what we will actually experience through the 5th and 6th canto. Of course, this is King Priyavata, and we have Priyavata, who else? There's Ajamil, there's Daksha, there's, of course, Vritasura, but that's Chitraketu. So we'll discuss the many different personalities, and all of these personalities have something in common. But we'll get into those details throughout the 5th and 6th canto. Okay, Vaishnava aparad, the mad elephant offense. And of course, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed this particular offense as one that can actually check our advancements in Krishna consciousness. And it's one of those offenses in which the Lord himself does not forgive the devotee directly. We see in the case of Ambarish Maharaj, when he was offended, the Lord did not allow this to actually take place with Vasamuni and Ambarish Maharaj. And so the chakra followed the Vasamuni. And so anyway, however, there's a certain magnanimity of Nitai and Gauranga. There's only one particular case where we call that the devotee actually was forgiven without directly going to the other devotee that he offended, and that is the case of Srivas Thakur and Deva Nanda Pandit. And at this particular point, Devananda Pandit was actually forgiven in the village of Navadvip for his offense to Srivas Thakur. And this place is known as Devananda Pali. And this is one of those areas in which, the only area in which a devotee can actually be forgiven for his offense to another Vaishnava if he is not able to actually approach this Vaishnava for forgiveness. However, as Srila Prabhupada expressed it, you can't buy a ticket to the holy dham. And so therefore, everyone is not afforded this opportunity. So it's extremely important to guard against this great mad elephant offense of Vaishnava aparad. And so in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there are different offenses or different kinds of Vaishnava aparad that are mentioned. And of course, it's, to make fun of a particular devotee, or to, of course, criticize a devotee. There's also enviousness that is displayed to a devotee, any type of disrespect, and also to not greet a devotee by obeisances. This is something that is important to actually acknowledge, especially in this age of Kali Yuga. And we see even in our ISKCON movement, not even in our ISKCON movement, all of the Vaishnava Sampradayas, as we see as Kali Yuga progresses, there's a tendency to become lax in a certain culture. And so therefore, I speak about this because to not greet a devotee with obeisances, this is something that is sometimes it's not followed. However, one should always offer devotees obeisances in the mind, even if one cannot physically, even if one does physically offer obeisances. We can offer obeisances into mind to offer this respect. And so, we talked about the criticism or blasphemy of a devotee, and, Srila Rupa Goswami expresses that, you can just discriminate a devotee, criticize a devotee based upon his caste, accidental fall downs, his last life or previous life, the sins committed during this previous life. And these are all kinds of types of blasphemy. And so there's also some examples of the Vaishnava uprise to, touch a Vaishnava with one's feet, to touch a Vaishnava with one's feet, to disobey the order of the spiritual master, to verbally chastise a devotee, especially publicly. I recall one particular devotee in Vrindavan who at one point in time was having a challenge with a very exalted devotee in our movement, Mother Yamuna. And this devotee had challenges and there was some verbal exchange, and Mother Yamuna bowed down and offered obeisances to this devotee, and the devotee kicked her. And soon after, the devotee's status changed. He was a sannyasi, fell from that particular position, and was very special devotee. And for years was pretty much in obscurity because of this particular Vaishnava aparad. To disobey the order of the spiritual master, of course, is clear that the spiritual master, of course, this is the appearance day of Nityananda. The spiritual master is that special devotee, the representative of Nityananda. And to disobey the orders of the spiritual master is like unto disobeying the Lord himself. and of course to verbally chastise a devotee, especially publicly. And of course, even if we are in positions of authority, it's just extremely important in how we actually engage in our Vaishnava culture, and Vaishnava etiquette is important to understand. And so we talked about this particular devotee kicking Mother Yamuna. Then, of course, oh, I'm sorry. My wife is telling me I'm off camera. So, Yasabari Muni, of course, giving shelter of fish and offending Garuda and not allowing him to engage in his necessity for existence, for sustenance, giving shelter of fish. That was Sabari Muni's offense, and Gopal Chakrabarti, of course, with Haridas Thakur, and expressing, his lack of faith of Sri Nam, the holy name, and Haridas Thakur, of course, and Brahmachari, who had the exemplary faith. We pray to follow in the footsteps of the devotees of Haridas Thakur, or his great faith in Sri Nam, the holy names. And so, of course, Gopal Chakrabarti expressing that, if this holy name has such faith, your nose, if it doesn't, your nose will fall off. And of course, this pastime, Gopal Chakrabarti, his nose began to melt off of his face because of his great offense to not only the holy name, but to the great devotee, Haridas Thakur. And so these are many different types of offenses that a devotee can engage in. There's, of course, another pastime with Srila Prabhupada, and one early devotee who was very close to Srila Prabhupada. And he was learned in Sanskrit and learned in the Shastra. And at a certain point, he considered, okay, I've learned everything I can learn from you, Srila Prabhupada. Can I go to someone else to learn from? And Srila Prabhupada, he cursed him. He said, you won't get a guru for another kalpa. And so that was Nitai. And so
that story is told by
that story, yes, is told by Burajan Prabhu and Narayani Mataji. So it's extremely important to guard against this offense, Vaishnava aparad, and especially Guru aparad. And so this offense, though, as we expressed in the verse, Srila Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur expressed that this is the only offense that really can check us in our advancement in Krishna consciousness. And what is the cause of the manifestation of this particular offense? What is this cause? What is this cause? None other than ahankara, our own false ego, a false ego of seeing ourselves as being a devotee, first of all, being a great devotee, secondly, being a great personality, considering ourselves to be better than another devotee or another person in general. And that takes place because of the ahankara, and of course, forgetfulness of the Lord himself, Krishna. And so we're encouraged to always remember Krishna and never forget him. And we see that this particular process is so powerful that one cannot be checked in this particular process. And so you would like to talk about some of the second impediment.
Yeah, and these impediments, Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand them. However, the main purport that Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand is that even though there may be these different impediments, and even if a devotee may fall from committing some offense, that that devotee, it's not the fall of that devotee. It's not permanent. It's not that they won't be given another opportunity to somehow engage in Krishna consciousness. So this is the mood of the great devotees, why they don't criticize another devotee, because they understand that once a person engage in devotional service, then that person will actually be given another opportunity to serve the Lord. And we see that, so much in our own ISKCON. We have that example of this purport that someone may commit some offense. They may even go away for some time. However, at some point in time, they come back to Krishna consciousness, even if it's not that they're actively participating in the institution. They don't give up on Krishna. They're always still engaged somehow in Krishna service. Just recently, one of my friends that's taking care of the BI in Florida for His Holiness Nityananda Maharaj, she was sharing with me one of the devotees that was doing a seminar, and she's new, so she didn't know that devotee. And so when she said the name of the devotee was, of course, Harikesh, that I knew, Harikesh Maharaj, Harikesh Swami. And we know that Harikesh Swami had some challenges, and we know that he took some time away from Krishna consciousness. At the same time, here's Harikesh Swami today in 2023, giving a most amazing seminar on behalf of Srila Prabhupada's mission. So we have many examples like this of devotees that may have been challenged in their devotional life. So this is why Prabhupada mentions that these are impediments. They're impediments, and they may be impediments for a very long period of time. However, it's not that a person is bereft of Krishna consciousness eternally. That's never the case. Krishna is very kind, very merciful, very loving. And this whole verse is to help us to understand the compassion of the Lord. So the second impediment sometimes comes from the Lord himself, according to Srila Prabhupada. And he's explained in the purport elaborately about this impediment that may come from the Lord. He says sometimes, as Ekavira Prabhu explained, the Lord and his devotees may create some situation, some covering for a devotee for some particular reason. And then Prabhupada, of course, gives the example of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, and how formerly they were Jai and Vijay and the gatekeepers in Vaikuntha, but however, by the desire of the Lord, by the desire of Krishna, they became enemies for 3 lives. And so Prabhupada gives this in the purport just to bring our attention, our awareness to the fact that Krishna also, he intervenes, he acts sometimes to make things difficult for a devotee, so that a devotee can become, or perhaps do some service for others. And so this is another type of impediment. And the one of the points that I was thinking about here is what Vishwanath Chakrabarti explains, that even if there's something unfavorable for devotional service, and we all know there are many times we face unfavorable things, if it is the desire of the Lord, if it's the desire of the Lord or the authority, the devotees, they happily accept. And so Ekavira spoke about the false ego. What stops us from accepting, of course, is the false ego. Because if the authorities or the Lord himself is creating this impediment, we may not be aware of it, that, oh, this is an arrangement being made by the Lord for some service to be done in some way. And so we may not be so favorable. We may not be so favorable to whatever the activity may be for our purification, or for us to engage in devotional service. So I recently was told of one devotee that was being very critical of other devotees that were not, maybe engaging in the way that they thought those persons need to be engaged in devotional service. And so this came to me that sometimes by the desire of the Lord, he makes some arrangements with devotees so that devotees can get help, so that devotees can somehow or other be once again reconnected with the service of the Lord. So Prabhupada makes the point here that Krishna consciousness is perfect and eternal, and therefore it cannot be lost in under any circumstance. So even if a devotee may be acting in a way that is not understood, or in a way that makes another devotee uncomfortable, the foundation of this principle is that the service of a devotee cannot be lost in any circumstance. And Srila Prabhupada, again, in this purport, is such a long purport. However, he explains that this material world is full of obstructions. Seventh chapter of Bhagavad Gita explains this, that this external energy, Krishna says, this external energy of mind is so difficult to overcome. He explains this to Arjuna. So it's difficult to overcome because there's so many obstructions. Maya is very busy. Maya's at work. And as we all know, that her service is really to assist the Lord. And so she's very active in that service, very sincere, very dedicated. So as a result of her dedication, we may experience some obstruction in Krishna consciousness. It may appear to be some kind of impediment. However, Prabhupada says the personality of Godhead, he explains to us in this verse 931, that once one has taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, he cannot be lost. So this is why now today we're having this verse that, I don't know, it's circulating all over the internet with different perceptions and permutations and computations, this Apichet Charo verse. And ultimately, here Prabhupada is explaining to us that a person's devotional service is never lost. A person is never just in the path of bhakti. It's never that, a person is not given an opportunity to once again come back to Krishna consciousness. And so then again, Prabhupada is helping us. This is why this verse is so important, because he gives us so many different ways of looking at this principle. He says in this verse, Shivatamam. And Prabhupada says it's very significant. This word is very significant. What does it mean? It means that it's most auspicious. That's what the Sanskrit word means, most auspicious. So this path of devotional service is so auspicious that a devotee cannot be lost under any circumstance, even when it appears that perhaps they may be somehow or other fallen, as we use this word, so much as we use the word karmi in devotion in our lexicon. We also use this word fallen. However, a devotee may appear to be fallen, and it could be an arrangement from the Lord, or it could be offenses. So many different reasons why it could appear that a devotee is fallen. And then Prabhupada says he gives us another point to consider, to look at. So in the Srimad Bhagavad, in the Bhagavad Gita, this verse is there. My dear Arjuna, he explains, for a devotee, there's no question of being lost, either in this life or the next. Never. The devotee is never lost. So even though a devotee may engage in what appears to be the most atrocious activity, they will not be lost. Krishna will always be there. Krishna protects his devotees, takes care of his devotees. And yes, we may not appreciate the behavior of such devotees. That can be there, but that does not take away the fact that this principle is embedded in our Vaishnava culture. This is a principle of developing the culture of respect. This culture of respect, we develop it by understanding that a devotee is always a devotee, even when their behavior may appear not to be devotee-like. because Krishna is most merciful, Krishna is most compassionate, Krishna is most kind, and Krishna never turns his devotees away, never turns his devotees away. So again, Prabhupada gives another verse to help us to understand this point in the Bhagavad Gita. And that's this verse in 643. I'm sorry, I didn't look at that verse, but anyway, this verse is also explaining to us that Krishna's ultimate care for the devotees, Krishna's ultimate protection. And Krishna may arrange different ways for devotees to learn from their fall down. The Lord arranges like this. However, these devotees are still going to be protected by the Lord in every situation. So I was looking at Hridayananda Maharaj's 11th canto, because the 11th canto is just really amazing, very amazing. This disciple of Srila Prabhupada in helping us to understand how to deal with everyday situations. And he explains in this verse in 11, 20, 27, I'm going to briefly read it for those of us that may be struggling with some area that we may appear to be fallen in devotional life. Maharaj explains, he says, having awakened faith in the narrations of my glories, being disgusted with all material activities, knowing that all sense gratification leads to misery, but still being unable to renounce all sense enjoyment. So devotee may not be able to renounce sense enjoyment. Devotee may get caught in, Maya's web in some ways. And so Maharaj explains, my devotee should remain happy and worship me. Krishna is explaining this with great faith and conviction, even though he sometimes engaged in sense enjoyment. My devotee knows that all sense enjoyment leads to a miserable result, and he sincerely repents such activities. So this is the criteria for a devotee to get absolved from whatever sense gratification, even sinful activities that they may have been engaged in or are engaged in. Prabhupada explains that a person may have awareness, they may know, I'm sorry, not Srila Prabhupada, this narration here, it's, they may know, we may theoretically know, I may theoretically know, I may theoretically know that sense gratification leads to misery. Certainly after hearing it for so many years, you have some understanding about that. However, as Ekavira Prabhu said, the false ego is so huge, is so great, and Krishna's material energy is so difficult to overcome that still someone may experience some impediments, some challenges. And so Prabhupada then, I'm sorry, here it's explained that even though he sometimes is engaged in sense enjoyment, my devotees, they know that sense enjoyment will lead to miserable results. And so that person repents, that person understands, they know that, okay, they may be in some ways weak, and that's explained in terms of the different weaknesses of heart, Sudurlabha, for a devotee. And so the devotee understands this, and the devotee repents for whatever activities they may be engaged in that is not so suitable for their advancement in Krishna consciousness. The point here, though, is how to view a fallen devotee. How do we view the fallen devotees? And that's what Prabhupada is helping us to understand, how to develop, how to have this culture of respect, this culture of appreciation for the services a devotee has done, and this culture of understanding, basically, that a devotee, even though they appear to be fallen, they're different. There can be different reasons why that may be there. And we may not know, we may not understand how Krishna is using a person. So therefore, becoming aware of this offense of criticizing devotees is very important. And one last point that Prabhupada was making here in this purport is that there's a bright side. there's a bright side to all of this, or a happy side, a side that we can all look to and be hopeful. He explains, by the order of the Lord, a perfect devotee sometimes comes to this material world like an ordinary human being. And so and he gives many different examples about this. We can understand this by looking at the life of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he may appear to be an ordinary person. However, he came into this world to teach us, to show us, to help us to understand how in this in terms of Priyavata, accepting this role of being a grihastha, householder, even though he was such a renunciant, he accepted it as a service. He accepted it on behalf of his authorities to do that service, even though he didn't want to do it. We have the example of how Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he accepted family life. He had so many children. And in his Atma Nivedanam, Atma Nivedana, in one of the shlokas of these prayers, he explains, "O Lord, nothing further remains that may be called mine. Father, friend, brother, you alone are all these to me. My friends, wife, sons, and daughters are now your servants and maidservants. Whatever care I take for them is only as they are related to you." And then he gives another verse that says, "Declaring that my wealth, family members, home, and wife are truly yours, I continue as a mere servant to dutifully protect them. For the purpose of your service, I will earn money and bear the expense of maintaining your household. I know nothing of what is good or bad. I simply render my services. I am but a watchman set to guard the properties of your household. I exercise my senses only according to your direction, and thus I desire to hear, see, smell, and taste. I no longer do anything for my own pleasure." Bhaktivinoda says, "Your pleasure is the essence of everything." So ultimately, Bhaktivinoda Thakur teaches us the goal of those that may be engaged in what appears to be sense gratification. Certainly someone could say he had 10 children, that appears to be sense gratification. Bhaktivinoda Thakur was one of those persons that was specifically sent, to this planet in order to help those of us that will take to this process of devotional service, and to help us to understand what is the proper consciousness to have when we engage in, for example, grihastha life, like Priyavata Maharaj. So this theme of impediments or obstacles in a devotee life, we need to look at it very carefully, and it's really important to look at it from the point of the sastras, from the great sadhus, from our lineage, from our line, and see what are some of the comments, for example, from Vishwanath Chakravarti in terms of fall down, and what is it, how do we look at devotees that especially in our modern day ISKCON, how do we see devotees that may appear to fall down and still be respectful to such personalities? Otherwise, we can commit an aparad, we can commit an offense. So on this beautiful Nityananda Appearance Day, our prayer is to be conscious of these offenses and to implement them in our lives so that we, as a grihastha couple, can be exemplary, like Priyavata Maharaj. Thank you so very much. Nitai Gora Haribol.
Any comments, questions? And of course, the class this evening will be given by Vena Madhurya Prabhu, and he will speak about the glories of Lord Nityananda Ram. We were hoping, because this is an important aspect, if there aren't any comments, questions first.
Very much, Sherry.
Thank you, Sherry.
Hare Krishna, Mother Vraja-Lila, Hare Krishna, Ekavira, Prabhu. Thank you for the very insightful and principle-based class. If I may, thank you. I have a lot of take-home points, but one thing that I'm personally feeling to implement in my own life is that you said that we have to be conscious of committing an offense. but if somebody has done an obvious wrong, calling that as wrong without attaching a feeling to it, is that an offense as well? You know, like we have this child protection services in our movement, and they do say, like, they have this very difficult service to find out who is not following the codes of the society and of course the shastras. So without attaching the feelings, if say, okay, you've done this wrong, we're gonna give you this is what you're gonna do. So are you saying that, okay, we're gonna do that, but we're not gonna attach a feeling to it, we're just gonna do it out of the sense of the duty? Sorry, I'm driving.
So, you know, yesterday we were reading about Shukadev Goswami. He's on the highest level of devotional service, Uttama Adhikari. So the Uttama Adhikari, they see only the Krishna conscious aspect of a devotee. They see the Lord, and they see that Krishna is in the heart of every devotee. And the qualities, as you know, Prema Kishori, you're very sastric and very most spiritually intelligent. You know that there are different levels of how we understand interacting with the devotee. So we can interact with a devotee from the platform of an Uttama, which certainly I'm not, you know, we're not. So we can, however, we can read about that mood of Uttama. We can also read about a Madhyam. Madhyam also sees the Lord within the heart of the devotee. Or we can also look at it from a Kanishta place, you know. And so perhaps for all of those personalities, those situations, the feelings are there. Feelings are always there. However, our feelings are to be directed to the Lord, to Krishna. And here within this purport, Srila Prabhupada is helping us to understand how to deal with those feelings, how to dovetail those feelings so that we can be respectful and understand that there can be some sadness. We can feel sad for a devotee, that they have to go through the challenges or face the impediments that they may be going through. We can have some sadness about that. We can feel even some hurt that, oh, others have been hurt by this devotee. And that is not ever, and it does not ever bring any positive results in our Krishna conscious paradigm. However, Srila Prabhupada helps us to understand that all of us are fallen. We're all fallen in this world. That's why we're here. Otherwise, we would be Uttama Adhikaris, all of us. And to understand that everyone is fallen, of course, people are fallen on different levels. We cannot separate the fact that we're humans with feelings. No, yes, as in answer to your question, we are humans with feelings. When we start having feelings of resentment and anger and, you know, disappointment and frustration and feelings that take us away from our goal, then we need to check and see, is that Kanishta, is that Madhyam? Where are we? And that requires honesty on our part. Prabhupada's mood, Srila Prabhupada's mood, as far as I understand, is to always be respectful. Yes, we can be definitely, as I said, hurt and sad, and we definitely want to help a devotee to be rectified. So we may have certain guidelines of how we deal with devotees in order for them to be rectified. But we never, we try our best not to be Kanishta in how we deal with the devotees. We try, and you know, it's not easy because the false ego is very, very, very difficult. Krishna says this divine energy of mine is very difficult to overcome. So on this day of Lord Nityananda's appearance day, this is the day to cry out and to pray for those impediments within ourselves, you know, that may block us from nicely engaging in devotional service. Yeah, so I'm not in any way supporting a person's behavior that is causing harm to others. I'm in no way supporting that. I'm simply trying to highlight a bigger principle in the mood of those Vaishnavacharyas and how they address these difficult situations. Like, for example, Ekavira give the story of Nitai, that devotee of disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada cursed him. But why did he do that? What was the reason? He cursed him so this devotee could get a deeper understanding of Krishna consciousness and the mood of serving the Guru. The same situation happened with my spiritual master, Bhakti Maharaj. Same exact situation. He dealt with it differently. He just told that devotee, okay, you go. And he even gave him a letter to go to that other person. Now, that other person happened to be within our lineage, within our line. I don't know if Nitai was going outside of, our sampradaya. I'm not sure. However, always respect. We need to have a culture of respect. I hope that answers your question. Compassion, is always more powerful in every situation.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I guess I have to explore the different levels of respect. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Krishna.
Thank you. Well, what are your thoughts, Prema Kishore Prabhu? You have so much, understanding about this. What are your thoughts? Well, how would you answer that?
Mataji, Vraja-Lila Mataji, I know you love me and I love you, but I don't think that I'm shastrically so advanced to answer my own question, which is my own doubt. But I have layers of confusion right now. I'm not clear, because in Bhagavad Gita, first chapter, verse 36, Srila Prabhupada quotes 6 kinds of intruders, which one has. If they are killed, there is no offense. So is that out of compassion that we kill them, or is that out of anger? I'm not clear. But personally, you have given me more food for thinking.
One thing I learned from hermeneutics.
Thank you.
One thing I learned from studying hermeneutics a little bit is that we need to see Srila Prabhupada's verses in context and how he's explaining some of the things he's explaining. So it's nice to look at that in context about killing.
Okay. Thank you.
Hari Hari, Taka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhu.
First of all, I want to thank you for a very, very wonderful class. Really, especially wonderful. I'm really super appreciative. You've touched on a bunch of points that are near and dear issues for me. I was a little anxious about this verse today. I was thinking I want to commandeer this class today to ensure that some important points are covered, and you covered them nicely. So I'm really pleased with that. The issue of understanding how to regard a fallen Vaishnava is very, very critical, because if we don't understand that, then as you say, we are liable to ourselves commit offense. I wanted to express my appreciation, and I have a lot to share, a bunch of material I'd love to discuss, but it's already after 8 o'clock. I don't know when the deities are going to appear. If there's a little time, I can try to share a few things. Otherwise, maybe another day, or maybe I should just try to go ahead, and we'll see how much time we have, as it's Lord Nityananda's appearance day. Maybe their lordships will later than usual.
I don't know. I saw Sarvatma Prabhu. We can check with whoever is here from the temple. I don't know myself.
Sarvatma Prabhu, are you aware?
Anybody knows? Yeah. Go ahead, Tarka Prabhu.
Yeah. I think where to begin here.
And there was somebody, Kylie, that also had a question, I think.
Yeah.
She had her hand up.
To start with, Srila Prabhupada is referencing Bhagavad Gita 9:30, 31 actually.
Prabhu, Karaka
Yes.
Prabhu, may I say something? Usually on festivals, the altar is open at 8:30. However, because I mean, no surprise, you're a little long-winded. I will allow other devotees to voice their questions first or concerns, and then you can come in and comment. Is that okay with you?
I am simply your servants. Whatever you want. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
So I think Kylie, I don't know if there's a person still here.
Hare Krishna, yeah. I was actually just going to make a comment on Prem Kishori, her like question and kind of like doubt and confusion, but I do want to thank you for the class. It was really sweet. I really enjoy hearing about Nityananda on his appearance day. And this Vaishnava Aparad, this is something that has been on the mind a lot also, because sometimes things happen not on purpose, but a comment on Prem Kishori, she was mentioning something about like in the aspect of killing, she was referencing the Bhagavad Gita and something with the emotions. So when we do something, it's based on emotions. I feel like I'm also expressing a question is like, I feel like when we do things, it should not be based on emotions, because the emotions we can observe and understand, but we should not identify with them. And if we let them control us, if our emotions are dictating our actions, I feel like that is not necessarily correct. So so we should be looking to things like Shastra, Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra for taking action rather than our own emotions. Is that correct? Or can we act on our emotions? Or I don't know, maybe you can say something more on this.
It's important to, yes, what you're expressing is correct, that one, when we have any type of challenge, we should always refer to Guru Shastra, Sadhu, because the emotions, yes, they can lead us in all different types of directions. And just as we're expressing in this particular verse, it can lead us to this impediment, which can check our progress for many lifetimes, and that is based upon, ahankara, false ego, and then acting based upon the emotion, because emotions are a part of this. When we are focused on seeing everything as an extension to ourselves, it's focused on our lower emotions. So what were you expressing?
Yeah. So we're talking about the emotions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You want to say
I just
something?
wanted you to speak louder.
Can you hear me, Kaylee?
Yes, yes, I can hear. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so yes, we always refer to Guru Shastra and Sadhu. And I think Prema Kishori was, she was not saying we should act upon our emotions, but she was expressing that there's a particular point where if someone is actually an aggressor, you can always defend yourself. And she was expressing that, is this an act of compassion or is this act of emotion? Well, even in this particular case, it's just an act of an emotion, which most of the time it will be if you're attacked by an aggressor. One is basically forgiving of this because you're defending yourself. So that was the reason why she expressed that. She wasn't saying that it's basically condoned across the board to act on your emotions.
Yeah, I figured. Thanks for clearing that misunderstanding. Also, just a quick question on the term of falling down, because you know we hear that in Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying that something, there's no, I can't remember exactly what he says, but there's no loss or diminution on this path. But then we hear this fall down all of the time. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, and that's something to help us to understand how rare and important it is to engage in the process of Krishna consciousness. One time, a devotee approached Srila Prabhupada and expressed, said, Srila Prabhupada, sometimes I fall into Maya. And Srila Prabhupada expressed, no, sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. And so in this particular state that we are in, we're practically always in Maya. And it's only by the grace, and especially the grace of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, that we are actually afforded this opportunity to actually be in touch with our actual nature and be in Krishna consciousness. And so our fall down is something that is apparent. We are here in this world because of our fallen consciousness. The question is, are we actually going to be lifted up by taking the shelter of Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya's lotus feet, and their representatives?
Okay, thank you. One other question, because yes, you did mention this. We're pretty much always in Maya and barely we're in Krishna consciousness. But for those devotees where they see everything in relation to Krishna, is there really no such thing as Maya?
When a devotee is on that particular platform, they always see only Krishna and only Krishna's energy, and that is the Uttama Adhikari. Only Krishna, and everything is, of course, yeah.
Could it?
However, the Madhyama actually makes a discrimination. Yes, it's Krishna's energy. Krishna expresses that. It's divine energy of mind. It's very difficult to overcome. It's Krishna's energy. It is his external energy. And so therefore they understand that, yes, because of our conditioned state, we can be controlled by his external energy. We're always influenced. And so the question is whether or not we're going to be influenced by Krishna's external energy or his internal potency. And so that's the reason why the point that you made about acting based upon Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu is extremely important and valid, because that is the way that we can act on the internal potency by following the direction of Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu.
I just wanted to share, Kylie, that there's this verse in Bhagavad Gita that explains the mood of a Uttama Adhikari, or a pure devotee, as you mentioned. And that pure devotee, they understand that Krishna is the source of all the spiritual and material worlds. They know that. And so therefore, even though they are in the material world, engage in some service on behalf of the Lord, they understand how the material energy works, the material world works. And so they're not affected by it, because they totally understand. Just like, I'm sure on some level, you understand some aspects of material energy and you know it. And so you just can look at it and say, and know, like, okay, I'm not involved in that. It doesn't even matter, because, I'm not a person that's going to engage in any of those activities of the material world, even on the level that you're on. So the pure devotee, they're like that all the time.
Yes. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Just sorry, one more question, and then I would really like to hear Tarika and you guys have conversation. But So like for an example, Haridas Thakur, when the prostitute was sent to him, obviously we see that as Maya, right? But Haridas Thakur, he was on this platform, right, where he could see, he knew what was happening, and so he utilized that in Krishna's service to make her a pure devotee. So is that kind of how like someone on that platform would see or interact with Maya, is not necessarily totally neglected, but actually like use in Krishna's service? Is that how one kind of elevates to that kind of platform? Or yeah.
So in the verse we were reading, we were sharing about the two different kinds of impediments, one that's caused by offenses and the other that's arranged by the Lord. So this prostitute that went to Haridas Thakur, it was clearly an arrangement, you know, for Haridas Thakur to teach the glories of the holy names of the Lord. And so this mood of Haridas Thakur is a mood that we imbibe thousands and thousands and thousands of years later. We're being taught that same principle of the importance of chanting, calling on the holy names of the Lord. And so this example of this prostitute she was simply used as an instrument in order to bring about this principle from the acharyas for us to live our lives by understanding how potent, how important it is for a person to be fixed in chanting the Lord's holy names. How it can, you know, just penetrate even a person that appears to be covered by Maya, that comes in that mood of being covered by Maya. The chanting of the holy names of the Lord is so potent, so powerful, that can cut through Maya. So that's the lesson for us from that pastime.
Okay, thank you.
And that particular pastime was also to illuminate the glories of, as Vraja-Lila expressed, the glories of the holy name and the glories of the pure devotee who is Kirtanariya Sadahari, who is constantly chanting the holy names. The only way that one can actually be pulled out of the external energy is through the grace of the Lord. The Lord and his holy name are non-different. And so this, this personality, Chintamani, was known as Maya Devi personified. And so she has a service. And one of those services is to show the glories of the devotees and also protect the holy Dham, protect the devotees, protect the association, those are divine associates, from those who don't have pure devotional service, pure consciousness. Yes. So to illuminate the glories of the devotees. One point that I just wanted to add real quick on this, seeing the devotees who have left the process or quote unquote fall down. I remember a particular time speaking with Bhakti Charu Maharaj was expressing something along this point. And he shared that it's important for devotees who see persons going through this phase in their existence, their phase in their Krishna conscious unfoldment, as a point in time in which they're going through exactly what Krishna has sanctioned for them to come back to him. So that experience that they're going through at this point in time is the exact experience that Krishna has sanctioned for them to come back to him. And that's like this point that's in the verse, you know, the impediments. One is Vaishnava Aparad, the other is the actual sanction or the arrangement of the Lord himself.
Thank you, Kaylee. We're going to go to Tarka Prabhu.
Thank you
want
for
to hear from him.
Thank you.
Points and questions, Kaylee.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you very much.
answering very nicely and being patient. Hare Krishna.
Tarka Prabhu, sorry.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Seems to be my perpetual karma. I don't know if there's time left for me to.
Yeah, you have 8 minutes.
I don't know if that's going to work.
Can you do one thing for us? You can share one thing, possibly.
I guess, I can try to, I guess I'll just begin, and I guess I'm going to be interrupted. I just wanted to try to shed a little more light on this issue of how to regard devotees. Prema Kishore was also trying to understand this more clearly. What Srila Prabhupada is saying in his purport to Bhagavad Gita 9:30 is important to keep in mind. He says the word sadhur eva, he is saintly, are very emphatic. They are a warning to the non-devotees that because of an accidental fall down, a devotee should not be derided. He should still be considered saintly, even if he has accidentally fallen down. And the word mantavya is still more emphatic. If one does not follow this rule and derides a devotee for his accidental fall down, then one is disobeying the order of the Supreme Lord. Sometimes devotees make an issue over the fact that Srila Prabhupada is here repeatedly saying accidental fall down. And so some will make a distinction between what is accidental or what is intentional. But Srila Prabhupada in the purport to 931 says that he erases that distinction, saying that regardless of whether it's accidental or intentional, the devotee is still to be regarded as, he uses the term pure devotee. And because we don't have time, I'm not going to try to go further into that issue. But so the devotee, even he falls, he is quickly rectified. Krishna says, not even quickly, but immediately, actually. Srila Prabhupada explains also in the purport to 31 how this works. That he says, generally a devotee who is engaged in the 9 kinds of devotional services, engaged in the process of cleansing all material contamination from the heart. He puts the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, and all sinful contaminations are naturally washed away. Continuous thinking of the Supreme Lord makes him pure by nature. And if there's time, I'll get into how this works precisely. According to the Vedas, there is a certain regulation that if one falls down from his exalted position, he has to undergo certain ritualistic processes to purify himself. But there is no such condition. But here there is no such condition because the purifying process is already there in the heart of the devotee due to his remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. And so how that happens is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti in a few places. And Mother Vraja-Lila, you touched on this issue of devotee feeling remorse for his offenses, for his failures, and that is the mechanism that affects a condition of constant remembrance of Krishna and results in a purification of all of the material contamination. Sometimes it appears that a devotee maybe is not remorseful, but a devotee actually will always be remorseful, even he doesn't show it initially. within himself, he will always be full of regret. In one lecture, Srila Prabhupada discussed this, that even the devotee falls down and remains in a fallen condition for some period of time, he is still automatically rectified, because he is constantly meditating on Krishna, because he is constantly regretful of his mistakes, and this is meditation on Krishna himself. So, and he becomes purified by that. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur did a commentary on Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and it's wonderful to read that. Srila Prabhupada draws upon those commentaries heavily for his own purports. In his comments for Bhagavad Gita 30 and 31, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one might ask, but if someone is corrupted by such bad behavior, how can he be a sadhu? This is answered. And he quotes, he should be considered as such and thought of as a sadhu. He should be considered is an injunctive statement. If this injunction is disobeyed, there will be unfavorable consequences. In other words, the evidence for the truth of this is that simply it is my command. This is Krishna speaking. Krishna orders that you must regard the devotee in this particular way. You may not disrespect him. Failure to obey Krishna's instructions in this case, of course, is going to result in calamity. So Vishwanath Chakravarti goes on, well, someone might say, one may be considered a sadhu partially to the extent that he is worshiping you, but to the extent that he is usurping other men's wives and property, he is not to be considered a sadhu. This is answered by the word eva, only. He should only be considered a sadhu in all ways, completely. We should never view him as not a sadhu. His determination is completely fixed. I may go to hell or obtain an animal birth because of my unavoidable sinful reactions, but I will never give up my exclusive worship of Sri Krishna. Such determination is praiseworthy. But one might ask, why do you accept the worship of such an irreligious person? Why do you consume the food and drink offered by one whose heart is contaminated by lust, anger, and other faults? In response, the Lord says, he quickly becomes religious. This is not expressed as he is going to quickly become, or he will soon achieve peace. Rather, the present tense is used. He becomes and he attains. The Lord continues, this means that immediately after he commits impiety, he remembers me and feels remorse. He thus quickly becomes religious. He thinks, alas, alas, there is no person more fallen than me. I defile the reputation of the community of devotees. Damn me. Again and again, feeling remorse like this, he achieves complete peace and detachment. Well, one may say, if he actually becomes religious, there can be no argument about such a person. But what about a devotee whose behavior is wicked and who fails to give up his bad behavior throughout his whole life? What can be said about him? Always affectionate to his devotees, the Lord responds to this doubt with complete confidence and with some anger. In the words beginning Kontaya, he says, my devotee never perishes. Even when he dies, he never falls down. To encourage Arjuna, who is disturbed with sorrow and apprehension over the thought that hard-hearted quibblers who judge in false logic will not accept this, the Lord says, O Kuntaya, go to the assembly of these disputants and making a loud sound with drums and cymbals, raise your arms fearlessly and declare my promise. I, Krishna, am the Supreme Lord, and even if my devotee is wicked in his behavior, he will never perish. On the contrary, such a devotee is sure to become successful. Their bad logic will be shattered by this confident declaration. So Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, declare it boldly that my devotee will never perish. They will certainly take shelter of you as their guru. Such is the interpretation given by Sridhar Swami in his commentary. Someone may ask, but why doesn't the personality of Godhead himself make this promise? Why does he instead deputize Arjuna to promise? In the same way as the Lord will later say, without a doubt you will come to me. I promise you this because you are very dear to me. Why doesn't he say, Kaunteya, I promise that my devotee will never perish? Here is the answer. At that moment, the Lord was thinking, I am very affectionate to my devotees and cannot tolerate their being discredited at all. I will often even break my own promise to let myself be discredited to protect my devotees' promise. For example, I will soon fight Bhishma and discard my own promise in order to protect Bhishma's promise. Thus, atheistic, logical quibblers will only laugh if I now offer my own promise, but they will have to acknowledge Arjuna's promise as if it were written in stone. Therefore, I will have Arjuna make this promise. So,
Vivo, Hari Hari. Thank you so much, Prabhu. You did so much research on this point. It must be it sounds like it's really important. As you said, it's important to you. And it's important to all of us because our tendency as devotees is to engage in the offense of criticizing others. We do that so easily. It flows so easily. So this culture of respect, we can only develop it when we understand, these deeper principles as you're explaining. Thank you so much for your research. That's beautiful. I'd like to get a copy because this is a hot topic right now. In the world today, in the secular world, they have hot topics. Well, ISKCON's hot topic right now, again, comes and it goes, but this, again, is fall down. And how as devotees do we understand this? And my spiritual master, our spiritual master, always engaged us in thinking respectfully and in feeling appreciation for others, no matter how fallen they may appear to be. And so we're very grateful for that training.
Bhakti-tirtha Swami was exemplary in that regard. He was an ocean of compassion, an extraordinary personality. I owe him a great deal. I think that sometimes mistakes are made in how we approach dealings with fallen devotees. And, based upon Shastra, the words of the previous acharyas, even the fallen devotee clearly is always supposed to be regarded as saintly, even temporarily is in a fallen state. And as you pointed out, within ISKCON, within our own history, what I've seen, I witnessed a lot of spectacular fall downs. And in every instance, I can't think of an exception. In every instance, those devotees returned to Krishna consciousness at some point or other, even if only on their deathbed. I can think of one instance of a leader that it wasn't until his final days that he finally was rectified, but always a return to Krishna consciousness. I have more on the topic, but we're out of time. As you acknowledge, it's an important topic for me because I am such a great operati. I have taken it as a part of my rectification to educate myself thoroughly on the issue of aparad and to try to share that with others. They are saved from the same pitfalls, and yeah, there's more. I'd be happy to share it with you. You have lots of reach, and so the material may be useful to you because as you say, it's a hot topic issue. There's lots of debate over this issue. I have been sometimes subject to criticism because of the position I have taken in defense of fallen devotees. Some just want to deride and decry the fallen, but this is not supported by Shastra or even by Krishna himself. He orders that these individuals have to be respected. So very important. We don't want to commit offense because it means sometimes our progress is checked, and sometimes for a very long time. As Srila Prabhupada points out, devotional service cannot be, completely destroyed. It's eternal, but sometimes you can lose all of your devotional assets practically. It can be very, very serious, extremely serious. It is so serious, and I have practical experience of the devastation that you can experience by committing offenses. I am terrified, absolutely terrified. I have a mortal dread of offense. It is the most terrifying thing imaginable. There is nothing worse. It is absolutely the worst thing. Every devotee has to understand and protect themselves against this kind of calamity. It's serious.
Thank you. Thank you, Tarka
Yes.
Prabhu.
Thank you so much.
I also want to thank Kylie for bringing it to our awareness about this word that we use so freely, that lexicon of fall down. When you hear that, immediately it connotates something very negative. And in our institution, we tend to have lexicon, we tend to have words or phrases that immediately when you hear it, it sometimes, if we don't go deeper to understand, we may go away with, it's a very negative thing when somebody falls down, which is why Narayani Prabhu, she emphasizes this point that if we use that word, try to understand that we're all fallen. When we use that word, remember, okay, I am in that category too of being fallen. So this way, it's not them and outside of myself. It's us. We are us. I am also a part of that. So thank you, Kaylee, and thank you, Kartaka Prabhu.
Yes.
Definitely, we're gonna come and get that information. Definitely, because it is a hot topic. It's called right now sensitive issues.
That's one of the reasons why I drew upon Srila Prabhupada's point when he's expressed that to the devotee, that sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness, and illustrating that, illuminating that in this material world, we're all fallen. And you expressed it, you were operati, Tarka Prabhu. You're speaking on behalf of all of us. One of the particular Vaishnava operas that I didn't speak about was one that we have to consider whether or not we commit it. And if we're really honest, we may commit this particular Vaishnava opera, and that's not being happy when we see a Vaishnava. And so sometimes you can even see on the face of devotees, when one person enters into the room, there's a certain look on the face of maybe one other devotee. And, this is something that we have to be really, really cautious about, because that particular personality, even though they may have a challenge, is very dear to the Supreme Lord, as you're expressing, and reading from Srila Vaishnava Chakravarti's point. These devotees are extremely dear to the Lord, extremely dear. They're extremely rare to have this fixed determination, whether they're here or in hell. So, thank you, Tarka.
Thank you. And
Tarka,
Tarka, you mentioned Bhagavad Gita 9:34, and I went and I looked it up. And I think of you like this. So this is my offering to you in appreciation today. This is how you inspire us. Engage your mind always in thinking of me, become my devotee, offer obeisances to me and worship me. Being completely absorbed in me, surely you will come to me. So I think of you like that. You're always engaged in Krishna and you're always sharing Krishna's glories. You're always eager and enthusiastic, even though you can't move out of your bed sometimes. And that's a blessing. And we thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words. They are undeserved, but it's because you are approaching Uttama Adhikari. You're seeing even a fallen wretch like me as a devotee. Hare Krishna.
Can I say something?
Yes, sir, Mahaprabhu. Thank you.
Can you turn that down, please? I'm at the temple now, and they have a couple more minutes. It's not much. 1 second, we'll try to eliminate. Just turn the speaker off. You see the light behind? Turn it off. There. Thank you. I had a thought. That's we should celebrate it, right?
Yes.
I finally had one. First of all, the incident with Nitai, that Prabhupada, he asked for blessings to go to a Babaji, and Prabhupada said, "You have my blessings to go to hell." 2 weeks later, he was forgiven by Srila Prabhupada. So he was allowed to return, which I found out somewhat recently. That was like that. So, and also Prabhupada said something to the effect of, not everyone who joined is a devotee. And of course, Prabhupada had his own definition about what a demon is. There was in Hare Krishna Explosion by Hayagriva Prabhu, Prabhupada was, Nityananda was somewhat complaining to Prabhupada that, you can't call people demons. That's not going to do any favors to the movement. And Prabhupada is someone, if you're not a devotee, you're a demon. Well, and he said, well, what about people who are halfway? And Prabhupada said, halfway is demon. So it wasn't, but also Prabhupada said that demons, not only devotees, but demons will join the movement. And at that point, I would like to make my I don't know if this is a statement or a question or a mixture of both. I think erroneously, we thought that this is a society for Brahmins, although it is a society for Vaishnavas. And Vaishnavas can be in any Varna, regardless, just like Ramananda Roy, most intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya, was from the Kayashna community, which is Shudra, and he was a king. A Shudra who was a king, who was the greatest devotee. So I think we still see with a bit of distortion that everybody in the movement needs to be a Brahmin. The problem with that is that it's not true. As that nature will come out eventually, and you will be whomever you are, but you shouldn't be afraid or ashamed of your position, regardless, because social condition doesn't determine spiritual position. In the case of Dhruva Maharaj, when Narada Muni gave him instructions to go home, forget this silly thing that you're a kid, you're going to forget about it, not important. Dhruva Maharaj, who became one of the greatest devotees, said, "That's great instruction, but it's not for me. I'm a Kshatriya. My blood is boiling, and I have nothing to do with this stuff that you're mentioning. It's great instruction, but it's not for me." So in the same way, if we see an offender, if we see an aparadi, of course, we may be committing the offense of not seeing properly. There was many cases of that, just like when Sanatana Goswami was absorbed in internal meditation, was serving the Lord in his spiritual body, and didn't see somebody, didn't recognize somebody, and they complain about being ignored and neglected and so on. But Sanatana Goswami had no choice because his vision was internal at the time. So we may be at fault, seeing defects or seeing faults or seeing offenses where they are not there. However, if they are blatant, like abuse of any sort, humiliation, child abuse, and should we act as, I mean, I feel every time I go to astrological reading, they told me you're a kshatriya, you're not a Brahmin. So my blood boils in certain instances, and I'm impelled to act, and I'm not so quick to forgive. So should I just refrain and restrain my nature and pretend that I'm a Brahman and know everybody's Krishna's servant and whatever they're doing is because of the sanction of the Lord? Or should I just, like, for example, and this is a painful part of my history, at a certain time, I was the temple president in Tallahassee, Florida, and Murli Varaka, a known child offender, he was traveling with some of the kids, and he asked me, he knew me, so he asked me if he had to attend a conference somewhere, if I could take the children for, the children, I'm talking about 11, 12, 13-year-olds, to around Florida, to the Everglades, to this place, that place, to the beach. And I said, yeah, I can make time for that. And I saw that the children were morose. Of course, I was a brahmachari, so I was oblivious to anybody's feelings. And I couldn't tell why they were, the kids supposed to be happy. They were by themselves together, and they weren't enjoying very much. I think there was something, there was a cloud that I could not see, I could not perceive. And so I took him around and, did the best I could. And when I found out that he was sexually abusing a lot of these boys, if I could have perceived that at that time, regardless of his superior position and hierarchy and seniority, I would have been glad to pay for the offense of sitting on his chest and pummel him until he was unconscious, because that's what he deserved in my, humble, non-Krishna conscious opinion. So how do you see that we should see offenses from our perspective? As, of course, we are not eternally kshatriyas or vaishyas or anything, but how should we see offenses based on our present situation? Okay, sorry about
Prabhu, you're so
But-
insightful. Thank you. I
Sorry
say
about-
Tarka, but I want to share something from my spiritual master that I think is relevant. When one of his first services was the Gurukula in Dallas, Texas, many, many years ago. And there were challenges that many, many years ago. And when those challenges were reported to Srila Prabhupada wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with what he heard that was going on then in the Gurukula. So as far as our natures, yes, we do have our natures, like you said, in our varna, in our ashram, we have this mood of being a kshatriya. We sometimes think we're brahmanas, whatever. We do have that mood, and we do need to be present and attentive to that mood. At the same time, the point that I believe Srila Prabhupada is making is that we don't eternally condemn someone for the activities that their behaviors that they have done when they got covered, by Maya. Like Murlavadika Prabhu, he was my Sankirtan leader. I mean, for years. He was a good Sankirtan leader also. He was really doing some amazing service, because I became a Sankirtan devotee because of his, care. At the same time, he had weakness. He had, whatever it was in his behavior that was definitely inappropriate. But as devotees, we don't eternally condemn these devotees, even though it's atrocious and it's horrible. Unfortunately now we do have a way that these devotees, these persons, when they get in, when they get overcome by their lower nature, we do have a way that they can be checked. Right now, the way to do that is to report those persons, where we don't have to beat them up like a pulp, which has happened in the past. I know many devotees that have gotten beaten because of some behavior that somebody might have thought was inappropriate. Now we can go to the appropriate people that may still beat them, but we won't do that. So I don't know, Sarvatma Prabhu, thank you for your transparency, and thank you for, I always appreciate, we both do, your honesty and how you understand the philosophy so clearly. At the same time, I mean, yes, we appreciate that. My only thoughts about that is it's so easy to not be compassionate and caring. It's so easy. It's so much more easy. So much more easy. I believe it's more difficult for devotees, for all of us, because the conditional nature that we may have, or as you said, from the ashram that we might be in, or from the varna that we have, we may.
I have a contention. I think to be compassionate to a murderer is to kill him. So, and not to put him in prison for the rest of their life.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the, we go into that. That's the reason why we have Kshatriyas. We appreciate your Kshatriya nature, because that is an act of compassion, because that will have some reaction. So
also they will learn the lesson. It's a lot easier for a
Yeah.
person to learn the lesson if like, for example, there was an interview between an Italian reporter and a Saudi prince, where she was outraged that they will cut people's hands when they stole and cut people's heads when they murder or rape. And the prince said, "This is a deterrent, ma'am. We haven't had any crime for 17 years, so it works." So I would say, okay, it may be a little draconian in a way. Yes, it may be draconian, but it gives a very good example that other people will think 2, 3, 50 times before they commit any atrocities. So I think it's not just trying to express my violent nature. Is actually trying to give an example that people will actually be very wary of their actions.
Mm.
Yes.
Well, that's why Priyavata didn't want to get involved in being a king in the world. That's why he wanted to stay being a renunciant, because being in the world and acting in the world and having to be responsible for people in the world will bring out their different natures. He didn't want to do that. Let's see, maybe I go to Prem.
We have Prem Kishore and
One thing, the deities are going to open in the next 5 minutes, but you guys can continue. There is no impediment. Just I'm in the temple room, and we will probably mute you, but you should definitely continue, because I think this is relevant.
So we'll go to Prema Kishore, and then we'll go to Tarka.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
And
think
thank-
Tarka Prabhu's hand was up before me. I
Okay,
think so.
but yours might be quick, because Tarka may
Okay.
take a little bit.
So, Sarvatma Prabhu's, I share the same feelings whenever I see a child abuse case, and I have seen extremely brutal cases where small children have actually died because of the abuse of their own father, or a 13-year-old girl has given birth from the abuse from her own father. So I have seen extremely brutal cases, and I have checked my heart rate and blood pressure at those times, so they were all high. But what has helped me over all this is that yes, I also feel like choking them to death right there in the hospital. But when they actually commit, and agree that they did that, and they're sorry for that, and they really do it, you can see it in their eyes. I think that makes me calm, and then I can pray to Lord for their protection. Otherwise, I'll just pray that kill him, or kill him. So I just wanted to share that experience, that we don't have to kill them and literally kill them, but if they actually commit, it actually helps them and people around them to come to a closure. Yeah,
That just proves what Prabhupada said about women being soft-hearted and more religious than men.
No, that doesn't mean that we release them to go back in the world and do more of that. They have to go through what they have to go through. But then I feel like purification of the heart is a better change rather than hanging a war. You can stay with your experience, that's fine, or your thinking. But I'm just sharing other perspective that if I'm going to hang a sword on the head of my kids, that you don't do this, is that better? Or I develop, or the purification of the heart is better, that which is better, like param dishtva nivartate. My Guru Maharaj is in ISKCON prison ministry, right? So he talks about these prisoners all the time, and he himself said that sometimes he feels like doing something to them, because 20 he said one case which most difficult case that he has encountered in ISKCON prison ministry was a murderer who had committed 20 murders in his life and was serving a life sentence. I don't remember, it was UK or Croatia, one of the two countries. And interestingly, one of the people that he murdered, his friend was in the same prison as this person was. So then there was this, imagine these two prisoners are fighting. So because this 20 murder prisoner came to somehow Krishna consciousness, because of the prison ministry's outreach, he wrote to my Guru Maharaj later on that he actually felt a sense of compassion for the person who had lost his friend because of my wrongdoing. And he said, I'm absolutely amazed that how could this happen? Because I was not like this at all. I would have choked. I would have done 21st murder. I've done 20. So Guru Maharaj shares this a lot if you hear his classes. But thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for your point.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
answer about Prabhu's.
Tarka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
With
Krishna.
regards to Sarvatma's concerns, Srila Prabhupada was asked this kind of question many times, was that our anger should always be directed towards the non-devotees, never the devotees. That's the proper way to engage that kind of sentiment, the Kshatriya spirit and so on. As far as devotees, in so many cases of devotees falling in all kinds of ways, and fall downs can be all kinds of things. Means that you fall from the shelter of the spiritual nature, and you take shelter of the material nature under the control of them. There we go. Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar. Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gaur Sundar. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I am cursed that I have.
You can finish that point. It's on mute. So if you just finish that point, Prabhu.
Can't remember what the point was now.
Prabhupada said, engage anger, not with devotees.
Yeah, I wanted to say that so when you take shelter of the material nature, under the control of the three modes of nature, your activities can be anything. Virtually anything can happen. To make distinctions between one type of fall down and another type of fall down is, from that perspective, nonsensical. Once you're under the control of the three modes of material nature, anything is possible. You become an animal. You can do anything. So if someone thinks, this type of fall down is less serious than that type of fall down, well, maybe you can make such kinds of judgments because sometimes the fall down involves other individuals. Others are hurt, and in some cases that may not necessarily be the case. But Srila Prabhupada's method of dealing with fall down with devotees was not that he condemned them or drove them away. And first of all, he did not advertise or broadcast someone's fallen condition. He allowed them their dignity so that they would be able to continue to act in this or that capacity, particularly with regards to leaders who were not immune to fall downs. He would take them under his wing personally. He would make them his secretary, his personal servant. They would become a member of his entourage for maybe 3 months or so to get them back on their feet again. He would help them rather than making things more difficult for them. And what was the other thing?
You know, in reference to that
I
point,
can't think clearly.
that point,
Uh,
I just wanted to share, when we worked with the Devotee Care Committee in Mayapur, we developed a system where devotees that had challenges like that we label fall down, that there would be a place that they would be able to go in order to rectify their situation. And it was in a different country even, where devotees that had some challenges, whether they fell from, that word, I don't like it so much, but anyway, whether they were sannyasis and then became grahastas, that was one of the main ones that we were having that was so challenging. Well, we developed, there was a place where those persons could go and get shelter and try to rectify their situation, you know, with proper shelter of devotees that are more friends that can help them.
Right. Yeah. What I wanted to say was two approaches Srila Prabhupada took. Either he would take such individuals under his own wing, or he would place them under the care of another advanced devotee. Those were his two approaches.
Yes, yes. Thank you so very much. Hari Hari. I don't know if we'll be able to see the lordships now. Sarvatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, here they are.
I wonder if they would put on oh, great. Okay. And here, Yamuna, we can't hear Yamuna chanting.
Thank you for the wonderful class.
Thank you for
Thank you so much.
engaging us. Thank you for engaging us on this most auspicious day. This is our purification.
Definitely.
Thank you for bringing up such a sensitive topic in the most compassionate manner, which is so dear to your. Thank you so much, Mataji. Tarka Prabhu, may I also get the copy of your comparison of commentaries of Vishwanath Thakur, Chakravarti Thakur Prabhupada?
Your wish is my command.
Well, that makes me feel so heavy. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Shri Radha.